This is Deep Blue, where we get the true life stories of BYU athletes, coaches, and fans. Here's your host, Jarom Jordan.
On today's show, I talk with the most accomplished soccer player of all time from BYU women's soccer. She's been an All-American, the second pick in the NWSL draft, won the Golden Boot, a league title, and scored a goal 24 seconds into a game for Team USA. She is the fabulous Ashley Hatch. Ashley, what's going on?
Nothing much. Thanks for having me.
Do you agree with me? Are you the most accomplished soccer player in BYU women's soccer history? I think you are.
I mean, you said it, so I'm not going to disagree with you. But I love coming on these shows because you guys have the best introductions. So.
Oh, thank you. You're very kind. No, but seriously, when I was looking at this, I was like, I think Ashley's the most accomplished. What you've been able to do has been incredible, which we will outline throughout, the next about hour. But, man, it's been awesome. Okay, so when I first got to know you, you were on the BYU women's soccer team, of course. And I helped call some of those games. And you were just this goal-scoring fiend. BYU. What did BYU mean to you in your career? And then, of course, we'll dive back to when you were little and then get to the present.
Yeah, I mean, BYU meant a lot for my career. I feel like it definitely kind of propelled me in the direction that I went after BYU. It was the first time ever playing, on a team on a big stage, essentially, and playing in front of fans and kind of getting that whole atmosphere of soccer and kind of the professional world of soccer. And then also just kind of pushed me as an athlete, as a soccer player, being able to play with such elite players, being coached by a great coach. It helped me learn a lot about myself as a player and as a person. And it definitely just, like I said, propelled me into where I'm at right now.
What kind of crowds do you get now compared to what you had at home games at Southfield?
That's a good question. So, Southfield was definitely more consistent. We had a packed stadium pretty much every home game. We now play at Audi Field and Segra Field. Audi Field, when it's full, we play in front of 20,000 fans, but it's anywhere from, unfortunately, 6 to 10,000, kind of ebbs and flows depending on when the games are, and if we've had for example, when we filled it for the first time was after the women won the World Cup. We had 20,000 fans in that stadium.
Wow! And
then it also just depends where we're playing, but yeah, it's definitely not as consistent as BYU was, and I think that's something that makes BYU women's soccer super special, and it's still a part of my conversations today with other athletes who went and played at BYU, the mountains and the fans, and also just how good BYU soccer is. Those are the three things that they always mention. So it's cool that I was a part of that.
Those are three great things. I love that.
Yeah.
Segra Field, I believe Old Glory DC, a professional rugby team, plays there sometimes as well, which I covered the Utah team in that league. So I see Segra Field all the time, so that rings a bell. That's cool. That's cool. Okay, so let's dive back to the beginnings with you. So you're born in San Dimas, California. Is that true? Mm-hmm. I don't even know where San Dimas is. Is it Southern California?
Yeah, it's Southern California.
Yeah, I know the San Dimas High School football rocks. I know that reference, but from a famous movie. But when do you move to Arizona? What's your childhood like?
So a lot of my family is originally from Southern California. That's where both my parents are from. We moved in 8th grade. We actually moved to St. George, Utah first. We were there for only a year and a half to 2 years. And then we moved to Arizona, and that's where I started high school. And so we've been there ever since. So I call Arizona home because that's where I went to high school and that's where my family still is. But a good stint of my youth career was in Southern California.
Which high school in St. George would have had Ashley Hatch scoring a gajillion goals for them?
It was Snow Canyon, but
okay.
They didn't need me because they won. I think my sophomore or junior year. I still had friends and stuff that I played soccer with, and I remember following them and seeing that they had won. That was pretty cool.
Where do you move to in Arizona in high school?
I moved to Gilbert, so I went to Highland High School. If anyone knows anything about high school in Arizona,
people know Highland. The Highland,
yeah, it's good, great school.
Highland's awesome, man. Yeah. Do you know the number one high school outside of Utah for student applicants to BYU? It's in the Phoenix area.
Is it Mountain View?
It is Mountain View.
I knew it.
So many members of the church, right, come from there. There have been a bunch of athletes too, but Arizona's grown, especially that corridor with Chandler, of course, and Mason and Gilbert. So many BYU athletes, students come from there. It's a pretty cool place in that regard.
Yeah.
What was it like to grow up there in high school as a member of the church, surrounded by other people who aren't members of the church, but there's a strong culture there?
Yeah, I loved it. I mean, I feel like, growing up in Southern California was very different from, St. George, Utah, and then from St. George, Utah to Arizona. My family, we kind of joke, we went from like one extreme to the next, like the perfect mix. And so we had a lot of, I had a lot of member friends. There was, seminary was a part of school, which was really nice. And then also there was a little bit more diversity compared to St. George, Utah, as, there were other people that were of different faiths and stuff. So yeah, it was a perfect mix for, me and my family and my siblings, and we really enjoyed it. The sports were really good, so that was a bonus. And yeah, it was a great place to grow up.
You're one of how many kids?
4. I have 2 sisters and 1 brother.
And are you the oldest?
I'm the oldest, yeah.
Have you noticed any traits or attributes that you may have developed by being the oldest? Like, do you like being in charge? Do you want to lead the group?
Yes. I'm definitely a facilitator. I've kind of like gave myself that role. My brother actually got married during COVID, so that the temples were closed, and so they got married in my backyard. My dad married them and stuff, and they had good plans, but I just came in and like solidified them. I made things happen. I had like a clipboard, and everything. So yeah, I mean, my siblings sometimes think I'm bossy, but I mean, I was in charge, whenever the parents left the house. So I had to make sure everything was in order. So yeah, I definitely have some characteristics from being the oldest.
I'm just imagining you with a clipboard in your backyard, just making sure everything's good the days leading up to that. That's hilarious.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
But it was fun.
Now on the soccer field, while yes, you do have assists, you are more of an alpha where you want to score the goals, right? At what point when you were younger did you realize, 1, I like soccer, and 2, I'm good at it? And those are kind of tied together. You don't love things that you suck at. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You only like the things you're good at.
Yeah,
Typically.
totally. That's a good question. So I kind of started, I feel like later in soccer. I played a bunch of other sports before. So when I started playing soccer, I was 8, and like we actually had positions, and I just thought you ran around on the field and you did whatever you want, kick the ball. But like the coach would put me in the left, and he kept yelling at me every time I would like cross over and just try and go get the ball. So I originally like hated soccer. Like my first like couple practices, I was like, this isn't fun. I don't know what's going on. I never touched the ball. But my parents were like, well, we signed you up for a whole season, so you got to stick with it. And then I like started like catching on to the rules. I started having some success because I was like fast and like pretty athletic. My ball control was like not the best. But as the season went on, I like picked it up, and I finally scored like my first goal, like the last game of the season. And I really enjoyed it. And so I looked forward to the next season. And I feel like the next season as a youth player was my breakout season, I guess. I was just scoring a bunch of goals. And then I just found myself naturally like wanting to practice more and more and get better. So I would say like soccer jumped to like number 1, like pretty quickly in my like youth career. But my dad specifically was very adamant about us, making sure that we played all the sports that we could while we could. Because like as you get older, it gets more competitive, and you can't play as many sports. So in high school, like soccer was definitely like number 1. That's kind of when I switched over.
So were you still playing other sports through high school?
I did track and cross country, but no other sports, just those.
To stay in shape for soccer?
Yeah, exactly. Like I would miss like track meets or cross country meets for like club soccer tournaments and stuff. But I like made sure my coaches knew that like soccer was my priority.
And at this point, you've been recruited for a couple of years, and it's a thing, right? What events did you do in track and field?
So I started with the 400, and then I moved over to the 300 hurdles and the 100 meter hurdles. So like my senior year, my 3 events were the 100-meter hurdles, 300 hurdles, and then the 4x4 relay.
That's awesome. So that like 400's like a mix, right? It is speed, but it's not like ultra speed, but it's not the 800, it's not the mile. Okay, that's interesting. That sounds like perfect stuff for a forward, right? You want blazing speed, but you also need to be able to play 90 minutes potentially.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That fits. Okay, were your parents athletic? Where do you get the athleticism?
My dad was definitely an athlete. He played baseball and did wrestling, and then my mom is quite the girly girl, but she claims that she was fast when she was younger and she like ran track and stuff. So I feel like I get it from both my parents, but I definitely get like the competitive side from my dad. My mom doesn't really have a competitive bone in her body.
The baseball and wrestling. What's your dad's height? Was he a big dude?
He's 6 foot, like not super big, not like super tall, but definitely pretty strong. And I mean, he still like lifts to this day, so he's like in pretty good shape.
He's still in the gym.
Oh yeah, every day.
Nice. What's his name?
Barry
Hatch getting after it in the gym. Let's go. Taking his C4.
Always.
Let's go. Okay, so your sister Brianna played at BYU, transferred to UVU as well. She played college soccer.
Yeah.
She was a good player. I remember when she was on campus, I was like, 2 Hatches, this is great. Are the other 2 siblings athletic as well?
Yes, they are. So all of us played soccer. My brother, I would probably have to say, was the most like naturally gifted athlete. The kind of athlete that goes out there like and has never played the sport, but then will all of a sudden like be the best. But he was also kind of like this pretty boy. I feel like everyone loved him. He like had more fun, you know, with his friends, and sports are more of a hobby. I hope he never hears this because he'll probably give me a hard time about this. But yeah, so he was definitely naturally gifted. And then my youngest sister also played soccer, but they didn't play past high school.
Gotcha. Okay, we're talking to Ashley Hatch here on Deep Blue. Okay, at what age in high school are you like, okay, this is real? Like I could play in college. Like this is I'm good enough. And who's talking to you? Who was in the mix besides BYU?
Yeah, I would say so. Going into my freshman year of high school, so I haven't been in high school yet, was my first ever BYU soccer camp. And the incoming freshmen are still with like the middle schoolers. They don't put them with like the high school kids yet, unless you're like good enough. So that was the first time that I had like competed against girls like 2 to 4 years like older than me. And I remember Jen moving me from like the younger group to the older group and like having success with the older group. So that was like the kind of the first time that I was like, oh, like I'm actually like pretty good, you know, against girls that are like older than me. And then in high school, my freshman year, I had made the varsity team and like was actually starting and scoring goals and stuff. And that's kind of when I like realized like, oh, I could actually play this game like after high school. And that's when I, you know, started getting interested in like the recruiting process and, you know, looking at other colleges. A lot of the California teams were in the mix, kind of just like reaching out to them. But it really came down to ASU and BYU for me. Those were kind of like my top 2.
And why BYU ultimately?
I mean, I really enjoyed the soccer camps that I went to, the summer soccer camps. And they showed the most interest, I think, the earliest. And so they were like consistent. ASU, like when I had reached out, it was kind of like spotty at first, but then like as I got older, they started showing more interest. And so I just loved the campus. I loved going to soccer camps. I loved going to the games, being able to interact with the players at the soccer camps and like get to know the coaches and stuff. I thought was really cool. So it was, and also just like the, you know, the religion aspect. I thought that was really cool to be, have the opportunity to be a part of a school where, you know, a religious school that is my same religion. So that also kind of played a factor.
You've mentioned the word consistency twice. Is that a thing you value in life?
Oh yeah. Like I am very like, even just like in my career as a player, like I feel like I am where I am today because of like the consistent, like small efforts. And I feel like you can't really make great gains without consistency. And so having a routine or being consistent in your relationships or whatever it is like a huge part of me.
It's super important. Absolutely. Okay,
Yeah.
so what players were older than you at BYU that you were like, oh my gosh, so-and-so came over here during the camp or whatever?
Jenny, I can't remember her name, what her last name right now, but she had like the curly blonde hair. Jenny,
Marshall.
I remember watching. Yes, Marshall. I still talk to her today, like, because she was playing still and still trying to play. But anyway, I remember watching her like on the field and then her like coaching me. And then Colette Jepson Smith, actually, like, she was awesome. She was, I think, she was my coach a couple of times. And then I remember like when I was a senior, she was coaching me, and then I became a freshman and she decided to like play a 5th year. So she went from like coaching me to us playing together. And I thought that was really cool. But I looked up to her a lot. And I loved like the way she played, because she was just like super aggressive forward, really scrappy, and just kind of like fought hard for everything. And so I really enjoyed watching her play as well. And it was cool that she coached me and then we played together.
That's amazing. My daughter,
Yeah.
Venna, when she was 5 or 6, Cam Tucker was her coach. So last year I was like, dude,
Nice.
Cam Tucker's like crushing it. She has been for years, but they're on this amazing run to the national championship game.
Yeah.
What was last year like for you to watch that team do something that you all had hoped for, right, when you played?
Yeah.
And it was the only thing missing on Jen's resume was no Final Fours. But they did it, and they went to the national championship game. PKs, just the worst way to lose, but it's how they won to get there. Yeah, but it was an amazing season. What was that like for you to watch that?
Yeah. It was really fun. I definitely was super proud, and it was cool to be able to, I don't know, kind of flaunt that, like, hey, I went to BYU and look how good they're doing, like be in that conversation. But it was so fun to watch them, and they definitely deserved going that far. And I mean, I'm biased, but I feel like they deserve to win. PKs is a hard way to go out, but like, yeah, Jen definitely deserved that. And I've said this before, I can't remember if I said it to you or not, but like, that's not now the new standard. So I'm super excited, going forward to see like what this team can do. Jen has now been there. She knows what it takes. And that's just another, I don't know, notch on their belts. And so the next, group of freshmen that come in, or, the next group of seniors, like, they're like, hey, this is what it's going to take. And this is the standard that we've set. And so I'm really excited to see like what they do going forward.
It'll be interesting to see how long Jennifer Rockwood continues to coach, frankly. I did a Deep Blue podcast with her, and it sounded like, oh, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm like, are you done now? Like, is it a year? Is it 5? I don't know. She's literally taken it kind of 1 year at a time for a while now.
Yeah.
And after last year, I'm like, there's only one more place to go. And they had a special team, of course, with Michaela Coulihan and Cameron Tucker. Those two are in the NWSL as well, which is super exciting. Orlando Pride for Michaela, Cameron Tucker for Gotham FC, which is like, no offense to the Washington Spirit, but I love Gotham FC's name. I just think it's really cool, right? What's it going to be like to have other fellow Cougars in the league, which is awesome. This program's too good not to have multiple players, right?
Yeah, I totally agree. It's fun. We actually, I played Michaela this weekend, and we have a cool part of our league. Those of us who, are religious, we have a little pregame prayer. And so I figured I would see her there, which was pretty cool. So I got to see her and see how she's doing, catch up for like a minute or two before the game. And then just, it's fun to follow, other BYU alums and see them be successful, because like you said, the program's too good not to have more of us. And like, I think about this often, like the girls that I played with, like Elena or Britton, like other girls that I played with, like obviously their lives worked out the way they were supposed to, but I'm like, dang, I wish they felt comfortable enough to come play, because I definitely feel like, they could have, made their mark in this league as well. But it's fun to see that more girls are feeling more comfortable and more confident coming into the league.
And Michaela's in the U23 pipeline, so perhaps in the future, maybe some senior team stuff, which could be pretty cool.
Be awesome.
That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
We've never had two on the same team. Maybe historically, I don't know that, but I feel like it was kind of here or there. Alicia Rose obviously was a big one there for a while. I don't know. Like, did Shauna Robach play on Team USA? Like, I don't know.
I think she did, but I'm not sure, so I can't say. But I know that she was another great player. So
we've had a handful.
Cool.
It's special.
Yeah.
Which we'll get to about Team USA. We'll get to that with you here in a second. Okay, so at BYU, any games or experiences that stick out about your time at BYU on or off the field? Because it was such a cool time to be able to watch you play and BYU have so much success, winning conference championships, you scoring a gajillion goals, going to NCAA tournaments.
Oh man, it was all so much fun. Honestly, like every game day, it was like Christmas. Like I just looked forward to every minute on Southfield. I mean, I feel like my freshman year, the game that we beat Utah and I scored the penalty in overtime was probably like one of the most exciting games of my freshman career. I don't know why they trusted me as a freshman to step up and take the PK, but
that's pretty awesome.
But we did it. So I don't know. It was a lot of fun winning, WCC. I mean, going to the tournament is always fun. I feel like I still am like bitter. I hate South Carolina my senior year because I feel like we got gypped.
2016? What year was it?
2016.
And that's who BYU defeated to go to the Final Four. A little redemption there, right?
Yeah, I was really happy about that. But yeah, I mean, my freshman class, a lot of us had like a tradition of taking a picture on all of the away games with the away team's like mascot. And that was like kind of like our game day -1 like ritual. And it was really fun. So like funny, silly moments like that with the girls off the field and just like walking around campus with teammates, trying to get people to come to our games and stuff like that. Like, I don't know, that was fun. And I can't do stuff like that anymore because I don't go to school. I just, play soccer. So
yes,
those memories are fun.
It's a little more professional, at this point, which is okay. Okay, so after your BYU career, you're getting ready for the draft. What are the emotions as you're like, is this the thing? I'm definitely good enough. Like, what is this league like? How are the tryouts? How high am I going to go? What was that all like?
Yeah, it was kind of scary because, you go from like playing 4 years at BYU, like after your freshman year, you know what it's about, you know what to expect like throughout the 4 years. And then all of a sudden we're back at square one with like so much unknown going forward. And as soon as, like my college career was over when we lost that last game of the tournament, like I knew that I wasn't done, but I had already, entered the draft because, there was a timeline and stuff, but I didn't really want to think about it until I was done with BYU because I wanted to put everything into my like senior year and like not be anywhere else. I wanted to be present. So as soon as that was over, then I started thinking about it. My dad was my agent. So we kind of like worked through it together. He would like call the coaches, email the coaches, like let them know that I was going to be entering the draft. I know that like Coach Chris at the time, who was one of our assistant coaches, he was worried that the coaches would think that I wasn't serious because girls in the past had entered the draft but not gone and played. So I feel like there was kind of like a big question mark for some people, like if I was actually going to go wherever I got drafted. But I was pretty committed. So I was just looking up mock drafts on Twitter, kind of trying to get a feel of where I might go. And there's a lot of moving pieces, but as it, got closer and closer, I remember Jen would like call me like every other day, like saying like, oh, I talked to this coach. I think you're going to go 7th. Oh, I think you're moving up. I think you might go 4th. And then all of a sudden, like I heard rumors that I might be going 2nd, but I also, didn't want to get my hopes up. So just, waited not very long with thank goodness and went 2nd.
What's it like to be picked 2nd in a professional draft?
It was unreal, to be honest. Like it was like a dream come true. Like up until like my senior year, I didn't really like for sure know if I was going to play professionally. So it definitely felt like a fairy tale. It didn't feel real, but it was a really cool experience to be a part of.
So you get drafted by the North Carolina Courage and you play a season there. What's that rookie year like? now that you're a professional soccer player?
It was a lot. It was definitely like a learning experience. I kind of went into it like just being a sponge, like soaking everything in from all the veterans, all their advice, learning what it takes to be a professional athlete, learning how to manage my time now that I wasn't a student athlete. Also like learning how to take care of my body more because the game is just so much more physically demanding. And just like trying to keep up with the speed of play, not only like physically, but like mentally, just like seeing things quicker, being able to see passes 1 or 2 steps before they happen, all that kind of stuff. I remember like after my first day of like preseason, I like texted my dad and I was like, whoa, like these girls are good. And the team that I was on, like we had some of the best players in the world. So it was really cool to be a part of.
Who was on your team?
So Dabinia, she's a Brazilian player. She is amazing. So if you haven't seen her play, please watch. She's great. Sam Ewis, Abby Dahlkemper, Lynn Williams, Jess McDonald, just a lot of experienced like forwards, midfielders, defenders. Abby Ursig was also a defender. She's still there as well. But a lot of players who had a lot of international experience and a lot of professional experience. So it was really cool to learn from them.
Was Lynn Williams at Pepperdine around the same time as you? I'm trying to remember. Or is that a different Williams?
I think she was at Pepperdine. I think we crossed paths maybe a year or 2.
Gotcha.
She's a little bit older, but I think she was at Pepperdine.
There were some epic battles there, as I recall.
Yeah.
Pepperdine. Yeah. Okay, so you spend that rookie year with North Carolina Courage. Then you go to Australia, Melbourne City, on loan. Mm-hmm. What went into that kind of decision and process, and then what was that year like? Or was it 2 years?
It was just 1 year or one off season in Australia. So I didn't start my rookie season until like halfway through. And so I remember saying at the beginning of the season, because I knew it was pretty common for rookies to go overseas after their rookie season just to go get more professional experience. But up until this point in my career, like living in North Carolina in a different time zone from my family was like the furthest I had lived like away from home. And so I was like, oh my gosh, there's no way I'm going to play in Australia. Like that's way too far. There's no way. And then like as my career, as the season went on, I actually had a couple teams from Australia like reach out to me and they're like, hey, like, would you come play for us? And then so I started thinking about it. And then the team that reached out to me originally was Adelaide. And at the time, I don't know how they are now, but they weren't the best team. So I was like, okay, like, I don't know, maybe. But then Melbourne City reached out and I heard that they were the best. Like they had just won. Their facilities were nice. Melbourne City was a really cool place to live. And so I kind of like started talking to other teammates and I was like, is this something I should do? And they were like, yes, do it. And I talked to my coach about it and he thought it was a good idea because he thought it would be good for me to get more professional experience, more games under my belt. And so then I was like, all right, I'm going for it. Like I'm serious about my career. I'm serious about getting better. And so I went for it.
What was it like in Australia? What do people need to know about living in Australia that they don't know?
The food is amazing. The people are really cool. I thought that like I would have no problem understanding people because they spoke English, but they have like their slang and their accents are really strong. And so it was not more difficult than I thought it would be, but it was fun. I had a few Americans on my team, which was helpful. The level of play at the time was really good. There was a lot of girls that had played in the NWSL in the league that also went over to Australia to play. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. And then obviously going to all the beaches was a great way to spend off downtime.
No big spiders or snakes?
Oh my gosh, huge spiders.
So
like
it's real.
Yeah. They're no joke there. So yeah, be careful if you don't like spiders. Maybe don't go there.
Yeah, about that. Okay, so you're there for a season you mentioned. So then you say, at some point you're with the Washington Spirit here. What was it like to, and why did you switch teams? And you've been there since?
So it wasn't my choice. I like towards the end of my season with Australia, I had gotten a call from my coach who basically just told me like, we didn't want to trade you, but this is like part of the game. We had to trade you and you're going to the Washington Spirit. And I was kind of devastated at first because I had really enjoyed my time in North Carolina. I enjoyed living there. We had a great team. We made it to the championship and lost in the final, but I was excited to like continue to develop as a player in North Carolina. So I was going from the best team to essentially the worst team at the time. But like I tried to see the positive in it. Like I would most likely be a starter. Where in North Carolina, I was still, battling to be a starter. So yeah, that's why I traded. Like that's why I switched teams. And we had a rough first season with the Spirit, but it's only been up from there. So it's been good.
For those who don't know, the Washington Spirit, NWSL champs. You won the Golden Boot. And
Yes.
it was also full of turmoil with your coach getting fired midseason. You had a new owner. What was last year like with the Washington Spirit?
Oh man, last year I always joke. I would tell people like it was the best but worst year of my life because there was just so much. Like the previous year was a COVID year, so that was hard, and then last year was just right when we felt like we had overcome one trial, another one got thrown our way. And it was just hard to work through, but the only thing that we could control was what we did on the field. And I think that, contributed to a lot of our success and really brought us together. So the ending couldn't have been more perfect. And it ended definitely on a high, but it wasn't easy getting there.
It would be one thing if you were in the league. We'd be proud of you regardless here at BYU. But it's another when you win the ship and you have the Golden Boot with 10 goals. What was it like to have those two parts? Like you won the highest team award and the highest individual award there. That's awesome.
Thanks. Yeah. I mean, I was definitely happy about it. It's something that, I had been striving for every single year. But to finally actually get there was, I don't know, just kind of a little bit of a relief. Like knowing that like, hey, like I had these high expectations, but some people might have told me a year or two ago, like those are too high of expectations. To finally like get there is just, I don't know, it's rewarding and it excites me that, there's always more room for growth and like that, is a potential for me. So I'm going to continue to strive for that.
Did you write it down at any point? Or are you saying it was a goal you had to lead the league in goals?
Yeah, I mean, like every year I don't talk about it. I'm very like internal person with like my goals and like how I go about things. But yeah, I write down my goals every year for the season, and that's always been on that piece of paper. So
and it happened. How about that? You
yep.
played it into existence. That's super cool. And I'm excited to watch this season as well. It's going to be fun, of course, with, as I mentioned, 3 Cougs in the NWSL. That'll be amazing. And then Michelle Vasconcelos overseas with Sevilla, right, in Spain?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Are those the 4 playing professionally, I think, alums? Are there any others I'm missing here?
I think so. Those are the 4, or we're the only 4 that I know of.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's cool. Okay, so the NWSL certainly went through some turmoil this last year. You guys, I think, got a new, CBA, collective bargaining agreement as a union and whatnot. What did you guys go through, and what does it mean for the future of the league? Because having a domestic women's soccer league is a must in the U.S., so I'm glad something got figured out there.
Yeah, I agree. It was huge. It was our first ever CBA, so, like, it was a long process. I'm one of the player reps for the Spirit, and so I had, the privilege of being a part of a good amount of those calls and those negotiations. But our PA did a great job of really fighting for us and, setting standards and setting expectations for this league moving forward. A lot of people who are now a part of the committee, Megan Burke, who is like our president, leader, great. She does everything. She's been a part of, 2 women's professional leagues that have folded. So she knows what it's like to be a part of a failing league, and that's really hard. And she doesn't want that for us because we have so many great players and so much to offer. This is our 10th year, I think, as a league, and so it's definitely like overdue. So to be able to like push, for those standards and for us to have good support as players and moving forward is huge. And hopefully more girls can continue to play longer and can continue to be supported throughout their career, no matter what, their family choices are. There's a lot in there for players who become mothers and, also players who are getting cut or waived their severance pay. Like, it's a little bit more realistic now for players to be able to play in the league and have a somewhat comfortable, salary. The base salary was raised. So there's a lot that went into it, and there's definitely like more room for growth, but it's a good starting spot.
Yeah, I was going to say, what's the next step in terms of the evolution of the league to try and be as functional as possible? Because what you don't want is, yes, we have a league, but no one makes any money, and it's super hard to make this happen, which I know was probably the case before, and maybe still is the case. You tell me. What's the next step to making sure this thing not only survives but thrives?
I mean, the next step I feel like is, we have this CBA. It's going to come out in writing, I think, soon, if it's not already out. And now it's like we need to follow the CBA and make sure that every team is doing their part to follow the standards that are in that CBA, to, live it through, the next, I think it might be 5 years. And, fix things that need to be fixed, take notes of things that are working, that aren't working, listen to the players on like what else we might need, just keep, pushing representation for our league, getting more people. Like, the more we can get viewership, the more eyes that are watching us, the more power we have in those negotiations and stuff like that. So those are some steps off the top of my head that like need to happen and will continue to happen.
We are in an era of women empowerment in sports, and it's the ball is rolling there, which is great. We're going in a better direction. Tegan Graham, one of the women's basketball players at BYU, just did a podcast called Second Class Citizens about equity and gender in Division I athletics. I'd recommend you listen to it.
I need to listen to that.
It's really good. Basically, she argued the numbers are there that if you give us the same chance, if you market us the same way, if you promote us, if you give us the same television access, that we will bring a product that is worthy of legit TV money. Like she talks about how all the NCAA sports outside of football and I think men's basketball are negotiated as one lump sum, but she said women's hoops, if it was negotiated separately, would make money, and then you could actually pay the teams for winning. The NCAA champ gets no money. In men's, there's units for every win that go to the school and the conference. So what kind of opportunities does a league like the NWSL need to be able to get to the next level in the same kind of vein as what Tegan's talking about here?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's a great point that she makes because I'm seeing it, I'm living it. Just like, for example, going through a little bit of the ownership issue that we had last year, having people in power who actually see us as, a profitable investment, not people that see us as a charity case. And I think that was kind of the hardest part in like my earlier years. Like, a lot of people wanted to be a part of it to like for a good cause. And I'm not saying that's bad, but you need people to come in because we believe in ourselves. We know what we have to offer, and we know the quality of what, the product we put on the field. And we need those same type of investors, those same people who are coming in here with the vision of, look at these women, watch them play, they're amazing, and they're going to go somewhere, they're going to be profitable. And that's what we need. Those are the type of investors that we need, and the like ownership and people and leadership power. So I think that message is finally starting to like come to the surface. But we also, need people who are watching because they believe that women's sports is, worth their time. So yeah, like I totally agree with what she is saying. And that's a huge paradigm shift that I feel like needs to happen for a lot of people.
100%. Give it a shot. I think you'll like it. I think you'll like how it tastes. Try it, yeah. Yep. Okay, let's talk about your USA career. So if I recall, was it your first cap was in Sandy at Rio Tinto in 2016?
Yeah.
That's pretty
my
cool.
senior year.
That it was in Utah. You're at BYU and you got a cap for the U.S. senior women's national team. Then and I think you played in 2 games there or something. But then 2018, you have a stint there. Remind me what happened in 2018.
So it was actually on my way home from Australia? Yeah, when I came home from Australia, I had gone to a camp. I can't remember if I don't know if I played in the game. I don't think I did. I think it might have just been a camp.
It was very memorable to you.
Yeah, I had kind of I think I played it in the game against Mexico, but it was like the last 5 minutes of the game. And that's kind of what my caps have been all the way up until recently when I played in Australia, just like getting invited to a camp, maybe playing the last 5 minutes of the game, and then a whole year before getting called in again. So kind of like sporadic.
And then in November 2021, when you get the golden boot and win the league, you get to start. Okay? You go back to Australia, which is a cool story, of course.
Yeah.
And then you score in both games?
Yeah.
How about that? Including in the first and fourth minutes. So you didn't waste any time. The first one, 24 seconds in. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Walk me through what that was like, because that's like the most ideal thing ever, right?
Oh yeah. I don't think my heart has beaten so fast in my entire life. It was a really cool game to be a part of. We were in Sydney and it was a packed stadium. And I honestly don't know if I've ever been in a stadium that packed where I wasn't the home team. So that was a really cool experience to be a part of as well. But yeah, I was super excited, but also super nervous. I just reminded myself that it's just another game. I know how to play this game. I know what I'm doing. I'm here for a reason. Kind of just reassuring myself. And then as soon as the whistle blew, just trying to, do what we practice, play out my role to the best of my ability. And then the ball bounced. Lynn Williams headed it over a defender and it bounced in front of me. And I was like, I cannot believe this is happening. Did this ball really just bounce right here in front of the goal? All I got to do is take a touch and finish. And as soon as it went into the back of the net, I was just super pumped. And it was exciting, but I was like, wow, we still have a lot of game left to play. So gotta catch my breath.
You were very excited.
Yeah.
You were very excited. I loved what you said in that moment as well. I loved it. I don't know if you recall, but you were very excited. I'll just say that.
I was very excited.
And there's Lynn Williams again, the Pepperdine, the WCC connection.
Yep.
That's kind of cool.
Yep. Yeah.
I mean, it's one thing to, like you said, hey, I came in at the end a couple times for the U.S. senior national team. That's amazing. But you start and you score a goal, and it's in Australia where you had lived. After that match, could you take in what that meant? And then the next game you score again in the 4th minute? Did you ever have a moment where you're like, oh my gosh, this is really cool what just happened?
Yes and no. When you're in the camp environment, it's a pretty demanding environment, and to be in the starting lineup all the way up until the whistle blew, I was doing everything I could to just prepare and make sure that I knew what our press was looked like, our mid block looked like, all the set pieces, just making sure I had everything locked in. And then as soon as that game was over, I think I was able to take it in for a second. But then as soon as I got back to the hotel the next day, we were preparing for the next game. So I feel I wasn't really able to take a breath until I had landed back in the US.
And then it set in at some point?
Yeah. Then I was able to, be with my family, relax a little bit and celebrate a little bit, because I had flown from Australia to Australia straight from the championship game, from the championship game. But it was the next day that I had left. So
oh, wow.
It was it was a whirlwind.
What a week for you.
Yeah.
That's amazing. You win the NWSL championship. You go and score twice against Australia. And, of course, for those who don't know, the 2023 Women's World Cup is in Australia and New Zealand.
It is.
What kind of competition is there to make that roster next year?
There's a lot of competition, if I'm being honest. There's a lot of young players. I would put myself in that category. who are competing for that spot, as well as veterans that I know aren't ready to give up that spot. So I think the best thing for me to do is just stay healthy, stay sharp, and do well in this league, because we go into camp. It's not very often that we go into camp, so like the coaches can only analyze and pick apart what we're doing in our home markets. So there's a lot of competition. So it won't be easy, but it's definitely a goal.
How many spots are there for forwards typically?
I mean, I can't recall off the top of my head what the roster size is for the World Cup. I think it's bigger than the Olympics, but so there's 3 forwards. Essentially, I want to say they take anywhere from 4 to 6. I'm not sure.
You have to be
honestly probably 4 or 5.
You have to be one of the top 5 forwards in the U.S. to make that roster.
Yeah.
It's tough sledding, but you're in the mix, which is exciting, right?
I mean, I think so. I would like to say so. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, what's next for you? Obviously, I guess the regular season here for the NWSL and Washington Spirit, right?
Yeah, so we're in the middle of our Challenge Cup right now, which is like just preseason tournament. So, doing our best to win that. It's super competitive. It's a fun tournament to be a part of because we're not all polished yet. It's the beginning of our season. But yeah, just focusing on the Challenge Cup and then getting ready for regular season.
I've left the greatest subject to last. I want to talk about Jeff, your husband.
Oh my gosh!
Because this guy's like the real MVP, right?
Oh yeah.
How's he been as a husband to a professional soccer player? And how'd you guys meet? Where's he from? What's his story?
So he's a Provo boy through and through. Went to Provo High, Bulldogs. We actually initially met playing basketball in the Smith Fieldhouse.
Nice.
My room.
Just some pickup.
My roommate Elena at the time had some friends that knew him and just put it all together. Like invited a bunch of people. They wanted me to meet Jeff, but I wasn't ready to date anyone because I had already been drafted. I knew I was leaving, and I wanted to focus on soccer. And so we were friends. He wanted to date, but I was like, no, sorry, I'm leaving. Long story short,
you're like, I don't know if you heard, I was the 2nd pick in the draft. I have things to do, Jeffrey.
Yeah, I don't think you understand. I'm not staying here for you. But I mean, luckily for me, he stuck around. We kept, in contact. We actually grew the closest over when I was in Australia, because all we could do is talk over the phone, and the time change was wild. But I was super homesick, but talking to him really helped. And then when I had gotten back from Australia and was settled in with the Spirit, that's when we started dating. Because I would come, Utah finally had a team, and I would come to Utah for games, and we would get to hang out. And then he came and visited me. He also visited me in North Carolina my rookie season, but I still wasn't ready. So yeah,
but he wanted to.
MVP.
He wanted to multiple times. He's wanting to date. You say no. He's going all the way to North Carolina. You're like, eh.
Yeah.
And then later he finally got you somehow.
Yeah, my eyes were finally opened, and I was like, wow, I have this amazing guy in front of me. What am I doing?
That's awesome.
But it's honestly, it's the truth. I don't think I would still be playing if it wasn't for him, because I feel this, once we got married, I feel my purpose in life just became, I don't know, so much bigger. And he was such a great support system, and just being able to do it together and figure out this crazy career that I have, where you never know where you're going to be. I'm pretty settled with the Spirit now, but looking back, we had no idea would I be here the next year, would I get traded mid-season, there's so many unknowns. So to be able to have him as we had a foundation with our relationship, with our marriage, and so it definitely helped me focus in and be a better soccer player. And he's all in, and he just loves it, and I don't think I would be able to fully put everything I have into soccer if he didn't feel the same way. And so I feel really lucky that, he stuck around.
Good job, Jeff.
Yeah.
Good job, man. What's it like being a professional athlete and a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints?
It's awesome. It's being a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has helped me as a professional athlete, just knowing who I am, knowing what my standards are, knowing like what's best for me as an individual, has helped me move through a lot of like tough stages throughout my career. And then also to be able to connect with people in my ward or just other people who are members of the church throughout the world, honestly, that I get to meet and just kind of share with them like, hey, your faith and your, involvement in this religion is not a hindrance, but a help to whatever it is that you want to do. And like, if you're solid in your faith and your testimony and you have that solid foundation, you can literally do whatever you want. So it's really cool to be a part of like such a huge church community. Even in Australia, like going over there and playing over there, like I knew I could find a church to go to and to have a community. So it's a really cool thing to be a part of.
That's fantastic. And it's cool because you play for more than yourself, right? You play for you,
totally.
You play for Jeff, you play for Gilbert, you play for BYU, you play for the Spirit, you play for the Team USA, you play for the church. Like, you have all these things that you represent, which is pretty cool. But I think I could speak on behalf of like all of BYU. Like, we're so proud of what you've done. It's so cool to see you excel at the next level and then go up a couple notches from there, right? And best of luck this season as well. And thanks for taking an hour here and chatting with me.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me. It's always fun to chat with you guys and still keep that BYU connection alive. So
absolutely,
I appreciate it.
Okay, that'll do it for us. Listen to previous episodes on the BYU Radio app or where podcasts are found. For Corbin Radford and producer Trent Rhymes, Schusel, and Ashley Hatch, I'm Jarom Jordan. You've just listened to Deep Blue on BYU Radio.